Can you really own something if you've stolen it from the US government?
Ask the Hosts, episode 12. I'm Joe.
I'm Andy.
I'm Jim.
And I'm Martin.
Hello, chaps. So the idea of this show is very simple. You send in your questions to us to show@askthehost.com and we answer them. The catch is they can be about anything except Linux and open source. And thank you to everyone who supports us with PayPal and Patreon. We really do appreciate it. You can learn more at askthehost.com/support. And our patrons get these episodes 2 weeks before everyone else. So check it out. Right, the first question then, from Paul. What popular song can you absolutely not stand?
Is this popular current day popular or popular through all time?
Right, because I have no idea what songs are popular right now, because who the hell listens to the radio anymore?
Yeah, let's just say all time, because I think we're too old for modern stuff.
Okay, if it's all-time worst popular song that I cannot stand, it's Fast Car by Tracy Chapman.
Oh,
Really?
That's it. You're fired. Get the hell out of the channel.
I don't think I know that. Is that bad?
In a world full of shit like Ice Ice Baby, Fast Car is what you go to?
Yeah.
For the most terrible pop song ever?
Of all the pleasure centres that I have that things can poke and prod, that hits absolutely none of them. And since the very first moment I heard it, I hated it. And today there are popular remixes of that song, and I can't reach for next track fast enough when that song or one of its popular derivatives comes on.
Well, this is the part where I declare myself your arch nemesis, because it hits me in just about every emotional place it could to get me on board. Working class people, struggling, having a difficult time, got a girlfriend and she likes your fast car and she just wants your help to get the hell out of Dodge and go build a new life better somewhere else. Fuck yeah, I'm on board, man.
Well, how dreary.
Meanwhile, Ice Ice Baby, everything about it is terrible. And honestly, it's kind of garbage to bring that one up because it's such an obvious one. But the main reason I feel okay about it is I'm going to bring up that every time you hear that dun 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 dun, I'm like, oh sweet, under pressure, and then stop, look and listen. Oh, damn it.
Yeah, it's not good, but it's probably not worthy of much airtime, I would think. Ice Ice Baby. I was going to go for Hey Jude.
Oh, really?
It's pretty appalling.
So I really like that, but probably not because of the song itself in its original context. When I was at university, that was the last song that was played at a karaoke night in the student union bar. And everyone had had far too much beer. And as we were all walking home through the woods and everything, everyone was just carrying on a chorus of la, la, la,
Yeah.
la, la, la. And for that memory and that moment, it just has a soft spot with me.
That is the bit that is really unforgivable.
Oh, wait. Okay, I got one better than the Ice Ice Baby thing. And this will be less universally loathed, which I feel like is, good for the track that we're on. I'm going to pick my most hated pop song as Beyonce's Single Ladies. Which the whole ladies leave your man at home, the club's full of ballers and their pockets full grown. That's just terrible. Leave your man at home. Go out and hit on the dudes with money. What? No.
Well, I'm going to go for pretty much any of the original Oasis recordings because when I was a kid, I used to love them. But then I just really grew to hate them, especially Wonderwall. The first couple of chords, no, skip instantly if it comes up on random. But live versions of stuff, I'm not too bad with, or, if I see them played in a YouTube video or something, it's not too bad. But if I've recently started using Innertune, which is an app for Android. Oh, no,
it's really
that's almost Linuxy. I shouldn't talk about that. But anyway, and so I do random skips on that. And occasionally you'll get Oasis stuff and it's just insta skip.
So is that because you've heard it too many times?
Probably, yeah.
I like the music. I hate the band, the actual band. I like the music that they play, but I went to see them live at the Music Farm in Charleston, South Carolina in the 90s, and they showed up completely freaking wasted, which, okay, fair play. Sometimes that happens. But they showed up completely wasted, played a song and a half, decided that was enough. It was time to bail, directed their roadies to collect all equipment on the stage and loaded up in their truck and bounced. Now, part of that equipment on the stage was for the local opening band that nobody had ever heard of, just a local band that happened to be opening, who was objecting vociferously to all their crap getting like rounded up by the roadies and put on the truck. And, the roadies didn't care, and Oasis was like, whatever, load it all up. And their shit left on Oasis's truck.
That's out of order. So can I bring us into the 21st century? And not because I ever listened to any music after 1995, but because I had this kind of good feeling about Taylor Swift. Like, I feel like she's on the side of the angels.
Oh, you're on tricky ground here. I'm looking at Joe.
So I just noticed that some Taylor Swift song was playing, and I was like, oh, it's just more of this stuff that I barely noticed because it's just nothing. Is that really bad, Joe?
Well, no, Taylor Swift, right, is prolific.
Mm-hmm.
She writes just shitloads of songs all the time. And as a result, some of them are really good. But there's also quite a lot of meh filler, I would say, on her albums.
So I would really like her. So you should recommend me a song to listen to.
Well, I don't know, just her greatest hits, I would say.
Okay.
Like, just go to YouTube and just type Taylor Swift and just listen to the ones that have got the most views, I would say.
Okay. I'm not optimistic.
I'm with Andy on this one. I don't hate Taylor Swift's music, but it does nothing for me. It strikes me as extremely shallow cheese. However, he said, I'm aware of how much so many other people like it, and especially, women and younger women, which leads me to conclude that it's just not for me personally, which is okay. There's clearly something great there. It's just not something that I personally need.
Well, I don't really identify with a lot of the lyrics, obviously, being a middle-aged bloke, but I think she's got a real talent for writing a catchy tune and a good hook, good chorus and stuff. And it's, some of her stuff is great. But then, like I said, a lot of it is like just all right, just filler, I would say. And if you listen to too much of that, you might conclude that, she's not very good. But what you need to do is you need to watch all 3 hours of her Disney Plus special thing, her Eras tour. And then you'll get it.
Okay.
So, as Andy has dragged us into the modern era, there is one, let's say, current popular song that I don't like. And it's called Calm Down, and it's by Rema, and particularly it's the remixed version that was done by Rema and Selena Gomez. And it's sort of an Afrobeats pop hit from a couple of years ago. And it's actually a rather lovely song about being love-struck. But in the hook, it has this repeated phrase about lockdown, and it's not that lockdown that it's referring to, but it opens with this lockdown phrase, and it just transports my mind to a time of misery and despair. And for all of the good qualities of that song, I just can't tolerate it.
I used to have a sort of religion about not liking anything that was pop at all. So I sort of grew up with Britney Spears being like the opposite of what was okay to like. But I think Toxic by Britney Spears is a truly excellent song.
Yes.
Yeah. I was just about to say Toxic, yeah.
Banger. Yep.
Right. Popey asks, what's your biggest regret in life? Mine is not getting him on this episode so he can explain himself.
So I thought about this one, and I came to the conclusion that saying I have no regrets sounds a bit arrogant. So I had to had to think about it for a little bit longer. And my regret is not going to the Isle of Wight Festival in 2010. And this is because when the Isle of Wight Festival got rebooted in 2002, we had a group of friends and we would go every year. And in 2010, my wife was heavily pregnant with my daughter at about the time the Isle of Wight Festival was taking place. And despite my friends telling me, it'll be fine, you should come, I didn't go. And I regret it because it was my one opportunity to see Juliette Lewis. At that time, Juliette Lewis and the Licks, a band that I love. And in retrospect, I could have done it. As it turned out, I could have gone, come home, and everything would have been fine. But it was within like 2 weeks of of my daughter being born, so I didn't. But I regret that I didn't get to see Juliette Lewis at the Isle of Wight Festival.
If you'd gone, though, your daughter would have come early and...
Oh, yeah, you can guarantee it.
You have to be careful. Like playing poker, sometimes it helps you think about life, right? And like when you play poker, if you were ahead and then you lose, you've got to give yourself positive feedback, right? To say, I played well there and I just got unlucky. So I would say, I think you played well there.
Mm-hmm.
You managed the risk well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think for, life points and marital harmony, I played the right move. But, knowing now, I could have had a weekend on the Isle of Wight. I might have quite liked that.
Most of my biggest regrets are more about like regrets of a personal failing of who I am more than like, I wish I'd made a different decision, because kind of like what Wimpy was saying, like I don't really have a whole lot of regrets in the sense of like, I wish I had done that other thing differently, because I feel like I usually make decisions that are pretty true to myself. But I have quite a few regrets about things that I'm just not. Like I regret that I don't have a little bit more tolerance for necessary bullshit, like, maybe what would have been necessary for me to get a college degree, for example, rather than getting like, 3/4 of the way through and being like, that's enough of this crap. I'm done with it. That's been an awful lot of my life, is not being able to follow easy paths because I just can't tolerate a little bit of crap to get over the hump and get onto the easy, well-worn groove. There's advantages to that too, sure, but like I don't want to fully just be like the guy who does all the things the way that everybody does all the things. But my life could have been a lot easier than it is without changing too much,
Well, my biggest regret, I must have talked about before at some point, I think. So I grew up playing music, and I was in a band with some people that I knew from school. And we finished school and they all went to university, and I was like keen to like, let's do this properly. And they kind of just didn't really have time, and we'd kind of play around London, but we didn't go on tour or take it seriously because they were doing their uni stuff. And my regret is not leaving earlier and just trying to do it properly.
Right.
But then, if I'd done that, my life would have worked out differently. And, I'm relatively happy with my life. Even this show, which, dear listener, is the least popular of all the shows that we do with the Late Night Linux family, even this show is way more popular. Like if I think about the number of people out there listening to this compared with the number of people who used to come and see us live, even on a good day, it's just completely eclipsed. So in a way, I kind of became a weird like rock star in like, if you can be doing shows about Linux or whatever. But, I used the lessons that I learned from music to do production and stuff. So I don't really regret that. Also, I could regret not going to LA when I was in my early 20s. So I just had enough of London. I'd had enough of the cold weather. And I thought, that's it. I'm going to just go to LA. I'm going to just get a one-way ticket. I'm just going to pretend to be on holiday, and then I'm just going to be an illegal immigrant, and I'm going to, be in bands, work in a bar, whatever. And it was a bit unrealistic. And I kind of started saving up to do that. And then I met what is now my wife, and that just completely killed that idea. And I do often wonder what would have happened. I don't think it would have ended well, to be honest. So I don't really regret it, but I do wonder what would have happened.
30 years ago, I went to Los Angeles, Joe, and I've just returned to Los Angeles for the first time in 30 years to go to Scale. And as a young man, 30 years ago going to Los Angeles, it did not end well. And if this question had been, have you ever been deported from a foreign country, I would have a story to tell you about my time in Los Angeles.
Wow.
Yeah, I think you told me that once before over beers.
Add that to the list. So mine is a way, it's sort of like almost the converse of yours, Jim. In a way of like, it's like, I think it's me being quite conformist and having some regrets about that. So I found this really difficult to think about this question. It was the one, when I saw the list of questions, it was the one that was really on my mind, because I feel like I've got a bit of a charmed life. Things have worked out amazingly well for me, and I'm incredibly happy. I had a time in my life where I was quite miserable, which was doing my PhD, and I don't regret doing my PhD, even though it was pretty awful. And I would say if you're thinking of doing one, then seriously consider not doing one. But like all of my colleagues doing PhDs had like physical signs of depression or stress every day. Like everyone was miserable. It wasn't just me.
Hang on, did you complete this PhD?
I did complete this PhD. I don't regret that either.
Right, I'm now going to edit all the websites to refer to Dr. Andy.
That is my correct form of address. The thing that I do regret about it is that I was really determined to finish it. My biggest thing was like some people get kind of lost and they never finish it. And I just did not want to do that. I didn't want to kind of fail in that way. So from very early on, I kind of fixed what I was going to do and was just like trudging towards the end. And what's the point of getting to do some research and find some stuff out and add to the knowledge of humanity if actually you just close it down and trudge towards the end? And I wish that I had taken an interest in the topic and just figured out what interested me instead of trying to get it done. And it was a big waste of time.
Yeah, especially if you don't call yourself Dr. Andy.
Yeah, I mean, now I can call myself Dr. Andy. And it probably got me my first job, so it's probably all worth it. But it was pretty painful.
I wish that I'd open sourced my first backup software project. I wrote an application that I named Archivist that none of you have ever seen that essentially did the same thing that RSnapshot does, if you've ever used that. But the configuration was different, and some of the organizational principles were a little different. Archivist by default would, instead of saying like how many days of snapshots do you want to keep, would say what percentage of drive space do you want to keep free, and I'll just keep adding new archive trees until we hit 90% or whatever, and then once we've hit it, I'll delete the oldest until we get down underneath it. And it was really great. I used it very heavily for probably 10, maybe 15 years. And I kept flirting with this is, I don't want to open source it because like this is great. And like at the time, it really was pretty freaking revolutionary. Nobody was really doing hard link trees back then. But I didn't open source it, and I never had anything close to the amount of capital you really need to make a business get off the ground. So just nobody ever knew about it. And then there was RSnapshot, and I stopped using my own stuff because even though I actually liked it better than RSnapshot, RSnapshot was something that was developed by a whole lot more people and was actively maintained and was readily available everywhere. And you could find other people, and like if they learned that, they learned something they could take with them rather than just knowing how to use like your little dinky thing. That experience made sure that when I wrote the software that I'm best known for now, Sanoid and Syncoid, man, that was GPL from the ground up before it ever saw the light of day. I went and I sat down, and before I even wrote the software, I created the GitHub page and the README. And as I wrote it from complete scratch, I did it in pull requests because I wanted to show like this is an open source project and this is getting put together the way that it should. And I want everybody to understand what I'm doing. And I'm inviting contribution. And as a result, now, it's kind of hard to find somebody who knows what ZFS is and doesn't know what my software is. And who knows what would have happened if I had done that back in the late 90s with the Archivist? I don't know.
Well, Jim, your new regret is not understanding the rules of this show.
Hey, you didn't put any rules about the answers. You put rules about the questions. So this is on you for taking the question.